All right, all ready to initiate drift, starting neural handshake, bringing up optimal Chrome tabs. Okay. Hello, I'm Matt.
And I'm Rob.
Welcome to Dungeon Master of None.
This is a casual Dungeons & Dragons podcast for dungeon masters and players alike, where we talk about all sorts of things that you might be interested with the intent of getting you excited about and inspired to play Dungeons & Dragons and hopefully giving you some of the tools that you need to do so.
Yes. And to illustrate the casualness, I've just opened a beer.
That's right. Matt has just opened a beer.
So
because
there's a lot going on.
We are a cool, chill, relaxed podcast.
We're not like your parents' Dungeons & Dragons podcast.
Late night with Matt and Rob. Getting chill in the evening. All right, Matt had something he wanted to talk about.
Yeah, so we'll do an alternative. We have an alternative recording that goes out live for the morning commute.
That's right. We got the zoo crew for the morning, and
it's a little raunchy,
a little more relaxing, smooth jazz feeling for the evening time.
Rob, you got a tip for us?
I've got a tip. This is a little bit more general, but it is. I would say it's an intermediate tip. And we've touched on some of what I'm going to talk about here, but I really wanted to lay this out. But my tip is that you should play to your strengths. And here's what I mean by that.
Play to your strengths.
Here's what I mean by that is that there are many paths by which you can come to be a DM. There are those of us who are, military history nerds. Some of us are theater geeks. Others are just general, science fiction enthusiasts. Some people are tabletop players. The point I'm trying to make here is that not everybody has to do DMing the same way. There are lots of ways to run a game in a way that everybody has a good time. And there's one particular malaise infecting the community that we've talked about before. It's that a lot of people, especially new DMs, think that they have to be Matt Mercer. And Matt Mercer is a very talented and multi-talented DM who does a lot of the different aspects of DMing very well. But he obviously has a couple of key strengths, which are that he does incredible voices. He crafts very good narratives, and he does a good job of staying in character and role-playing well with his players. But on Critical Role, he also has great sets and things and lots of prepared materials. But bear in mind, and I think he does a lot of this himself, but also he does have this is his job, and he has a production crew behind him. So maybe you don't have to be Matt Mercer. Maybe you're somebody who has a greater strength in drawing maps. Or maybe you're somebody who crafts a really interesting and winding Game of Thrones style narrative, and maybe you can't do the voices as well, but your story is substantially more interesting. So for me, for example, I'm a very good improviser. I tend to set up situations and then throw my players at them and then just sort of roll with it, and this works pretty well. What I am not great at is preparing materials, because I'm lazy. So I don't have a lot of maps. I don't have a lot of letters or props. These are things I would actually like to have. I love these things, and when I'm playing in games, and this is something I want to work on in the future, but it's not the thing that I'm best at. So I tend to play games and run games where I can play to my strengths, which are improvising and doing certain accents, mostly, European ones. And
do Italian. It's never racist. If you don't know what to do, do an Italian. It's a never racist. Gabagool. Hey, and to build on that,
Gabagool. Rob, I'm making the rockets. Kaboom.
How do you know what your strengths are? And I would say, you can always ask your players. you might just think about it and know. But I find if you sit down with some free time and think about what you want to work on for your campaigns, and if what you want to work on is drawing maps of intricate dungeons with fun secret passages and exciting things that look beautiful, then that's probably what your strength is, right? If that's what you gravitate towards working on, that's your strength. If you sit down and you start coming up with interesting NPCs, right, who have a set of amazing characters, that is your strength, right? What you naturally want to work on, that's probably your strength.
Yeah, and even if it's not, it will become your strength as you know, whatever like inspires you and motivates you to play and to run games. That is your strength as a DM, or it will be, and you can usually get there.
Paul, is there any like final thoughts, things that you wanted to tell to an audience of dungeons, 1,000 dungeon masters that you wanna let them know, or tell us?
Tens of people.
There are dozens of us. Yeah. Well, I think what I would like to impart most is that it's good to think about this stuff. It's important for us to think about this and to take our fantasies seriously, because so often it's discounted either from outside the community, who say, oh, it's just fantastical crap, who cares? Or even within the community as a way of excusing away things that are sort of coded racism or replicate really nasty parts of our own society, that they say, oh, well, it's just a fantasy. It doesn't matter. Who cares? It does matter. We do care. And it's important because the way that we fantasize about the world directly impacts how we feel it could or should be. And so making the efforts to try to make your gaming worlds better, more inclusive, more interesting, ultimately more historically accurate, and more just in a lot of ways. It's not futile, it's not silly, and if your players push back against it, get better players.
If anyone is ever telling you not to think critically and be smart about playing role-playing games, they have a very clear agenda, and it's an agenda of reaction and stagnation.
That's right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely. Paul, thank you so much.
Damn, this was so much fun.
This was so much fun. Do you want me to read this one?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, this one is from Sally. Sally says, hi, Rob and Matt. I'm embarrassed about how often I write in. Sally, never be embarrassed.
We're going to read one of your other letters right after this.
Yeah, but not embarrassed enough to stop. Good, never be embarrassed. Embarrassment is a tool of the oppressors to stop you from doing things that are cool and fun. So I've always thought of myself as not DM material, that I wouldn't be good at it or enjoy it. I had some data to back that up. I ran maybe half of Lost Minds of Fandevil for a group and didn't enjoy it, found it really tough. I then DM'd a one-shot for a different group of our LFG randos. Oh no, Sally. And didn't enjoy that either, but I was in a FLGS recently and came across the Tales from the Loop rulebook. Ooh, excellent. I got it and read it and felt like between the setting, I grew up in the 80s and 90s, so I feel a lot of mastery over the setting, and the light on crunch rule system, I could handle running a one-shot. My DM and fellow player in a D&D campaign, yet a different group, were into it, so I ran what turned out to be a two-shot. I had been pretty anxious about it, going well, smoothly, etc., and it actually went great. I had a lot of fun, and the players did too. I definitely didn't GM as seamlessly as someone more experienced would have, but didn't impede on the fun, and my players were super supportive. I'm really glad to discover that it's not that I'm not DM material. Maybe it just depends on the system that you're running, the group that you're playing with, etc. I couldn't have done it without Dungeon Master of None and all your guys' tips and advice, and also just generally encouraging newbies to get out there and try it, even if we haven't read the canon, or even if we didn't start playing with 2nd edition, even if we're women, etc. Just want to say thanks a lot. Sally, P.S. Tales from the Loop is really fun. Matt,
this is a heartwarming letter for Rob and I.
I honestly could not be happier to have received this letter. If there's
no other point to this stupid podcast than this one
if we have
letter,
wasted, if nothing else comes from all of the time we have spent talking, then this alone is worth it. So Sally, thank you so much for writing, and we are so glad to hear that you had a good time. This also brings up a lot of great points, Sally. I'm so glad that you had this experience, because Matt and I obviously talk about...
we're not glad that you suffered.
Oh, we're not glad about the suffering part.
Through suffering comes...
That's right.
Enlightenment?
Comes mastery, enlightenment.
Mastery.
But this is just like
Hate?
such like a...
I don't know.
This is such an instructive thing to hear about, because Matt and I do talk a lot about 5th edition and D&D specifically, and we both started in the 2nd edition era. We are also both very aggressively anti-grognard, and we are very, try to be inclusive. The more people that play, the better. But we do come from that sort of background, and a lot of newer players enjoy other things. This is such great advice. If you want to DM, if you have that itch, or if you can't keep a group together because nobody wants to DM, it may be that D&D isn't the right setting for you, especially if you have a bunch of players with a bunch of committed knowledge, and you end up in a lot of arguments or rules lawyering. There are rules light systems that just take that out of the equation.
And one of the mantras of our show has been that, anyone can be a dungeon master.
Anyone can be a dungeon master.
All right, Ratatouille, calm down. And the thing is, it's like any skill, right? You will find people that on their first day of public speaking or skateboarding or, playing some board game will immediately be good at it. And there will be people that need to do it for a couple months before they show mastery. Or there will be people that, can only have this sort of fun or do this with a certain group of people, right? Anyone can DM. You just got to either practice or find that perfect group that works for you, right? Yeah. I know there are groups of people who will hate me as a DM, right? And we won't have any fun. And I don't DM for those groups of people. But I also have groups of friends who really like me as a DM. So, right, yeah. You're not going to, anyone can DM, but you're not going, no one in the planet is a DM that's going to work perfectly for every game system and every group of people. A lot of our listeners play D&D or D&D 5th edition, but I think there's a lot that you can learn as a dungeon master from these types of games.
Yeah, I think that for anyone who was looking for stuff anyone who was looking for stuff to incorporate without having to do like a whole hack, because while it's fairly easy to sort of smush two PbtA systems together, it would be like a new kind of hell to try and smush D&D and PbtA together, I would think. And somebody already did that, and it's called Dungeon World, so you should. Yeah, I think that two of the things that people should look at the most are the sort of the links mechanic is what it's called in, I believe it's what it's called in the Sprawl.
It's called
which is
History or HX in Apocalypse World.
Yeah, and so that's basically deciding ahead of time, while you're building your characters, how they interacted previous to the start of this campaign. So they did these jobs together, it went well or it went badly. Because of that, they have +2 links or -1 link, depending on how that went. And so that gives you, it sort of gives you a number for how well these two characters are bonded, which is something interesting to play with. But it also makes it a lot easier to assist someone, because when you're rolling to assist someone in these systems, it's 2d6 plus whatever your links are. So if you have one of our characters are or a pair of our characters are super close and they have +4 links at this point. So if one of them wants to assist the other one, it's almost a guaranteed success, which makes sense, because that's a reflection of this past that they have together. And it's also a reflection of if you're trying to, if you're trying to help someone physically or comfort them or whatever, and you have I'm going to be it's going to be a lot easier for me to do that with my best friend of 10 years versus one of you guys even. And so I think that that's something that people can incorporate, even if it's just an advantage on an assist roll or something like that.
No, it's super awesome, and I highly recommend that every dungeon master read in any of these systems the rules for making characters, because one of the most common complaints you hear from Dungeons & Dragons players is the players don't want to work together or can't find a common purpose and stuff like that. And if you just incorporate just a little bit of the rules for this in helping players make characters with this sort of shared past.
Oh my goodness, this is such...
Doesn't mean they have to be best friends, right? Doesn't mean they have to always like each other, right? But just that shared history makes things work so much better.
This is such a common complaint in D&D circles is, my players, they don't want to work together, they don't want to cooperate. One of them is always saying, well, my character...
Hello, I'm Ira Glass. Today, on This Dungeon Life, we have the story of 3 paladins who are struggling to follow their paladin code. I don't have anything else where to go, so you need to pick this up.
Yeah, that was actually a pretty good Ira Glass one.